Hello and welcome to the Manchester is Red podcast. My name is Steven Railston and I'm joined today by Tyrone Marshall. We're recording on a Monday afternoon, 2 days after United's 2-1 win over Brentford in the Premier League. Ty, you were at the game at Old Trafford. First of all, how are you?
Good, thank you, Stephen. Yes, good. Looking
I
forward
was
to
just about to
dissecting a
jump
win
into
for a
it, but
change.
I
Been a
should
while.
ask you how you are. It's the polite thing to do, isn't it?
That is, yeah, much appreciated, mate. It's been noted. Thank you. How are you, by the way? I should ask you back.
That's the polite thing to do as well.
That is.
Tremendous,
I
Ty.
nearly slipped my mind there. Good. I'm glad to hear it.
I mean, maybe one day I won't be tremendous, and I'm not sure I'll tell the truth. Maybe I'll just smile and wave, and we'll proceed anyways onto the match chat. Look, Ty, the international break, we all hate it. It was over this weekend. The Premier League returned. There was a lot of uncertainty around Erik ten Hag during those 2 weeks. He remained in charge to oversee this game, and it was a much-needed victory, wasn't it, to alleviate some pressure on the manager.
Yeah, massive win, really. Going into that game, 5 games without a win, 3 wins in 11 this season, 5 wins in their previous 17 Premier League games. I mean, we were talking about that before kickoff. I mean, that's an absolutely staggeringly bad run of form. And obviously, the international break was dominated by talk of Ten Hag's future. And for me, there's no doubt he is fortunate to be in a job after the run of form we've seen over that length of time. And it dates back to last season. It was 27 wins in 63 before the weekend, going back to the start of last season. And things had to change very, very quickly. And I mean, they didn't change immediately. I thought Brentford was a better team for 20 minutes, played through United's press pretty easily. But by the end of the afternoon, it was a good win, a big win, one of the best performances of the season, one of the most complete performances of the season. And it did feel like it kind of bought him some breathing space going into 2 away games.
And the sun was out, wasn't it? Which makes a huge difference. The October sun, the conditions were pretty good for a Saturday afternoon game in October. And you think back to the game last year, Ty, against Brentford, and it took a Scott McTominay masterclass in those dying seconds of the game to turn that around, to salvage a result. But United obviously conceded first. We'll come on to the circumstances of that goal. But to come back to win 2-1 after going down in the first half, they showed great character to do that, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. And like I say, we'll come on to it. I think the manner in which they conceded probably helped them. If it had just been a run-of-the-mill goal, it might have sapped their confidence. I mean, at half-time, the half-time discussion in the press room was obviously dominated by that goal, but you're also thinking if they lose here and it's 6 games without a win and they've got Fenerbahce and West Ham away, it's a case of here we are again. We're talking about the manager's future. It felt like it was a massive, massive second half, and they did turn it around. It was similar to last year in that Brentford took the lead and United came back, but it was a different game. I mean, Brentford were incredibly unlucky not to win that game last year. This year, there's no doubt United were the better team. I thought they were the better team for the last 20, 25 minutes of the first half as well. They were easily the better team in the second half. That second half performance is one of the best of the season. And yeah, the best team won on the day. And that, as much as the win, that was also a big issue for United. They needed to produce a performance. And once they got over that kind of nervy spell in the first 20 minutes, they did produce a performance. And it was one of those afternoons when you can look at it and think, okay, there's a pattern here. There's something that they can build on. And obviously the challenge for Ten Hag consistently has been building on it, but there is something there to go at for sure.
It's interesting in football because when decisions go against you, or a decision that is perceived to go against you that's wrong or injustice, it can often give fans in the crowd a massive kick up the bum and just inject some life into the game, including the players on the pitch. And that's what seemed to happen on Saturday, didn't it? United were incensed at the circumstances around the goal. Obviously, De Ligt takes a knock to the head. He was bleeding a little bit. He had medical attention a couple of times. That didn't solve the problem, unfortunately. He was still bleeding by the time the goal went in. But then Diego Dallo leaves his man as well. So the goal was preventable, Ty. First of all, if the medical staff had actually put a proper plaster on his head and stitched him up properly. And then Dallo, it stuck with his man. Is anyone at fault? Who is at fault here? Were United right to be incensed? Because, as you said, that those kind of scenes at half-time with Darren Fletcher incensed and angry, that probably gave United a spark and a kick to the bum, didn't it?
Yeah, it definitely did, and they you could tell they were angry. They've talked about it in the dressing room that they were angry at half time. We saw Van Nistelrooy on the touchline. We saw Fletcher in the tunnel. They were clearly raging. What at? I haven't got. Well, obviously I have got a clue, but why? I haven't got a clue. It was clearly the right decision. Those are the rules. And the failure is on United and their medical team for not sorting it out. You know, Delict was ordered off the pitch 3 times. And it's, I said at half time, it just struck me as it's classic of the football operation at United recently, that it just felt like a lack of attention to detail, that it was just half an effort. We'll patch it up next time. I'll get done next time. It's, and I mean, the fact they won the game means it's a bit of irrelevance in the end, but dry blood would have been one of the great Ten Hag lines had they lost this game. It doesn't matter if it's dry blood or not. And if it is dry, why have they not wiped it off his head? Why have they sent him back on with dry blood on his head? The cut was obviously in a very awkward place, and I'm sure it was difficult to treat. It would have been difficult to get a bandage on, I guess, with his cut where it was. But the fact that it happened 3 times is pretty embarrassing, really, that a player's being ordered off 3 times. And it doesn't matter if the opposition have got a corner or not. Those are the rules. It's by the by whether they've got a corner, whether they've got a goal kick, or whether they've got a penalty. He's bleeding. He's got blood on him. He goes off the pitch. We all know why those measures are there, and they're enforced at every single game up and down the country. It's not something that's out to get United. It's not. It's just nothing. There is no ground for complaint at all from United on that decision. I don't think. It did feel kind of inevitable that Brentford were going to score. It is the kind of thing that happens to United these days. I mean, when we were watching that in the press box, I was sat next to Samuel and kind of said, you can see what's coming here. And even as the corner was on its way in, when it was maybe 4 or 5 yards from Pinnock's head, obviously we're sat, you've been in that press box, we're sat towards that end of the stadium, and you could see it coming in. You could see Pinnock had got free, and a couple of seconds before it hit the net, I'm just like, we were like, if they could score from this, and I'm like, and they have done. Even before the ball hit the back of the net, you could see he was going to get that header. And like you say, and I'm not sure whether Dalot had been marking him throughout. I mean, it was a really poor effort from Dalot to try and cover his man, and he gets lucky that A, the reaction to the goal is focused on what happens with De Ligt, and B, that there's a comeback and no one's talking about Dalot's defending, because it was poor, giving him a free run and a free header, especially when he's possibly their best header of the ball. But it served justice for United in kind of a similar way, I guess, to Bruno Fernandes' red card against Tottenham did. I mean, that took them a man down. They were never going to come back from that, but it did. It changed the mood inside the stadium that day from one of frustration at a really poor performance to anger at the referee. And that, in a weird sort of way, that worked for Ten Hag, because it stopped the criticism that was coming down in the first 40 minutes of that day. This time, they were clearly fuming about it. And in a way, it doesn't matter whether they were right to be fuming or not. The fact is they were fuming, and they did channel it in the right way. But had they lost that game 1-0, they wouldn't have had a leg to stand on. Those are the rules, and the rules were enforced. The rules were enforced properly. But like I said, they used that anger in the right way to produce a second half performance.
Saturday, 3 p.m. kickoffs after the international break in particular, you can always forgive the crowd for being a little bit flat. When you come back to the football, the atmosphere might not be bustling and electric, but when something like that happens, like I say, when the crowd feel aggrieved, it can come alive, and it clearly helped United, as we've said. But you're completely right. Rules are rules. It happens up and down the country all the time, and we see it every other weekend in one game throughout the division. So there can be no complaints at that. We'll talk about the goals then more specifically, because Alejandro Garnacho started on the left, Marcus Rashford was on the right. Both had really good afternoons. Garnacho's goal, fantastically taken. The right first time volley, brilliant finish, and obviously that gave United the impetus to get back into the game. And then the second goal as well, Bruno Fernandes, what a flick. I mean, even when he's out of form, he's capable of something like that, isn't he? And that's the beauty of it. Even when he's down and playing bad, he can just produce a moment of brilliance. And Rasmus Hojlund as well, what a finish that was, because I don't think we saw that composure in his armoury all the time, Ty. He was obviously quite raw last season, but he was the coolest man in the stadium with the ball at his feet 6 yards out. And the choice of finish was fantastic. It was perfect.
Yeah, it was. We have seen that finish previously. I'm going to think back to the Galatasaray game at home last year that United lost. He broke away from halfway. I think it was his second goal, and produced a very similar dinked finish. And there has been games when his finishing has been good. And I think, pretty sure we did overperform his XG last year. Niche chat that Samuel will love if he's listening, and honorary tip of the cap to XG while he's not on. But yeah, his finishing has generally been decent. My my issue is sometimes that he doesn't affect games when things aren't going his way. If the chances aren't coming his way, he's not someone who can kind of create something out of nothing that can force his personality onto a game. But when the chances do come his way, he's generally decent. And I mean, there was a couple of things about his performance on Saturday. The first one is that he improved after a slow start, and there was one moment where the ball went up to his feet to be held up, and Ethan Pinnock just totally bullied him, got around the side of him so easily, and caused real frustration from the stands just because of how easy it was. And after that, I mean, Hojlund's improvement in that regard after that was fantastic. His hold-up play was as good as Xerxes has been in. Often it wasn't just holding it; it was turning it. He was feeling the contact from defenders and turning and getting away.
That's the difference between Hojlund and Xerxes, isn't it, Ty? Hojlund, when he does make it stick, he can turn and go.
He can turn.
You don't
and get
get the
away.
impression that Xerxes does that, does he?
No, I think Xerxes often laying it back to players or looking for little flicks and combinations or playing it around the corner for a winger. But there was a couple of occasions where Hojlund got it under control, felt the presence of a defender and turned using kind of the inside and the outside of his foot. I think on 2 occasions, and it was clever play. And like we say, he took his goal really well. I thought it was noticeable in the celebration that he hugged Fernandez and pointed to him, because I thought it was another poor performance from Fernandez and Sol then. But like you say, it is what we get. I mean, if I'd have hanged for every time I'd written the phrase high risk, high reward about Fernandez, then I'd have a lot of pound coins in the house. That's just his game, and at the moment, it's the rewards are a lot lower than usual, but it will come back to him. It did. There was one moment right at the end of the first half, just before the goal, when he got the ball on halfway and he just kind of slapped it back to Onana, and it was almost disdainful, and it did cause a bit of annoyance in the crowd, but it was almost like Fernandez was doing it out of annoyance as well, that he just wanted to boot the ball back to his keeper, and you could tell things just weren't working for him. But the good thing about him is that he never stops trying those high risk balls, and that flick he played for Hojlund on another day could easily hit a defender. He could run out of play. He could fail to make contact with it. But with Fernandez, it almost doesn't matter if he's in and out of form. It's the same. It's the same outcome. One of those is going to come off, and it did come off really well, and it was a great finish. And the first was a good finish as well. I thought when we're at a game, we're often we're writing notes and writing things in the first half, and I was doing 5 things, and at half time it was one of them was kind of about the goal scoring issues. And obviously at half time, United had gone below Southampton in goals scored in the league, and Garnacho had a couple of chances in the first half coming off the left, one from another brilliant crossfield ball from Rashford, but you never felt that he was going to score them. There were certainly 2 really, really good chances fullback, but you never, sometimes you just get that belief that a player's going to score, or you get that belief that he doesn't look like he's got it. And with Garnacho, for those 2, he never really set himself properly. One was a wild slash with his left foot over. The other was a bit of a miss hit, right-footed shot. And it never felt like he was set properly. It never felt like he believed he was going to score. And then obviously the first chance he gets in the second half is the hardest one of the match for him, and he just volleys it straight in. Kind of summed up United's goal scoring issues in a way, that they can miss the easy chances and then take the hard ones. But it ended up being a really good day for the front 3. I think that is clearly the best front 3 that United have got at the moment, the most dangerous front 3 they've got. And obviously with the goals, Garnacho and Hojlund will take the plaudits, but I thought Rashford was brilliant in and out of possession, and just looks such a different player from last season. The intensity and aggression in his game is back compared to last season, and you're seeing it even with you talk about aggression. It's not just competing for a ball, just the way he's running at defenders. It's so much more aggressive than it was last season, and he's taking on players and beating them. He's making good decisions, and he just looks a different player compared to last season, I think.
Garnacho's finish, there was a lot of control in it when you watch it back. At first, you think when you see a volley, you think power straight away. That word comes to mind. But he actually really intelligently struck the ball with his foot to actually guide it home. There is a temptation when you get a ball in the box like that to really try lash at it and try overhit it. But I thought the finish was actually excellent. It was a really, really well taken goal. Bruno Fernandes is worth talking about a little bit more because, as we talked about, he's had a disappointing start of the season. There's no getting around that. He's clearly not at his usual levels. But when you think back to the FA Cup final last season, when he had that vision to just leave the pass through to Kobe Mainoo and kind of be involved in that move, what a goal that was. And Fernandes played his part. And obviously that flick on Saturday afternoon is another example of that quality. I feel like Fernandes is a player that has to be played back into form, Ty. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer used to do that quite a bit with players, where he would continue to play them in the hope that they'd coax back to form. There was obviously suggestions that he should have been taken out of the team this season, and his red card might have helped him actually, because it would have enforced him to miss a few games and be on the bench and watch from the sidelines or whatever. But I do get the impression with Fernandes, he needs to play, and he will just play himself back into good performances.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think it is to do with that kind of high risk element of his game that they're almost. He's almost one of those players that you just don't bracket. Is he in form or not? He just kind of is what he is. Some of those passes come off, some of them don't. And I think my issue with him this year hasn't been that he's been out of form. It's that he's kind of looked tired and fatigued at times. And I think there's an element of that when things aren't going for him, he shows it a bit, and he showed it with that pass back to Onana at the end of the first half. And there has been games where he's looked tired, and I think that's the reason fans have been saying maybe he needs to be taken out, not because it's not happening for him, which it isn't, but because he would benefit from a rest. But like I say, he is one of those players that you almost don't bracket in terms of form, because whether he's in form or not, he's trying the same passes. He'd have tried that flick to Hojlund, whether he'd got 10 goals and assists this season or whether he was having the season he is, which is a poor one. It's never going to stop Fernandes trying to do those little flicks. The only difference you can tell when he's out of form is maybe the frustration he plays with that you don't see. He's clearly a very emotional footballer on the pitch. I think we've seen that so many times. We've seen that in all these debates about his captaincy when he has one of his particularly emotional games. But that's just the way he is, and I think that's.
Do you find that interesting? Because I mean, we've both spoke to him, and you only get a glimpse into a player's personality when you speak to them in the mix zone. But he's quite a calm player when you speak to him, isn't he? He seems quite relaxed, and he's intelligent the way he speaks. He's very articulate. Everyone regards him as the best talker in the squad out of the press pack. He's a really nice guy to speak to, and I sometimes think his on-field persona is very different to the guy that I think about Fernandes away from the pitch.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I don't know if that's that unusual maybe in the game. I think
when they cross that white line, something switches on. Yeah,
something flicks, and it is. I think in a way it's born of that competitiveness with Fernandes, and you kind of hear the word sulking with him a lot. And when things aren't going well, and United are having those disastrous results, the classic example is the 7-0 at Anfield, and he just totally lost the plot in the second half. If there was the time when he nudged the linesman out of the way, and he was fortunate to get away with it, and he just, instead of, players are clearly at their best when they're playing, maybe with a little bit of an edge, like United did in the second half, but mostly when they're still cool and calm and thinking under pressure. And you just sense with Fernandes that when things really heat up, or when it's one of these 4-0s that we've seen United suffer a few times under Ten Hag, that he just kind of, something, it's almost like a switch is flicked in his head, and it bubbles up and it becomes too emotional, and he kind of loses sight of what he needs to be. But I think that's just what he is. I think everyone knows that's just what he is now. The number of people who work in that dressing room and say he's one of the most professional players there. I mean, Joe Lewis, I think, said it in the interview you did with him. Altay Bayındır did an interview in Turkey this week ahead of the return to Fenerbahce, and again said Fernandes is one of the most professional players he's ever seen. So there's a range of people who are saying the same thing about the captain there. And you're right, it doesn't tally with what we sometimes see on the pitch, which is a player just getting way too emotionally invested in it. But it is that white line fever, I think, basically, isn't it? And in terms of form, like I say, I think you almost can't categorize him with form, because you're right, something will come off for him, some things won't come off for him, but because of his style, because of some of the things he's trying, he's never going to be one of these players who's 85% pass completion, 90% pass completion, because he's trying passes that are difficult to pull off. And sometimes you'll have 15 or 20 in a row of those high risk balls that won't come off, and it will feel like he's not in form, and maybe he'll feel like he's not in form, but then one will come off, like the one to Hojlund, and suddenly we're back talking about him, saying that's what he can do. And I think that's just how it is with Fernandes. You just have to kind of accept that and balance that up.
I think that's a very good assessment, and you're right. You need players like that in your team. You can't have 11 Rodris who obviously he's world-class talent, but he's keeping the ball, retaining possession. He's not going to take those risks. And you need to take risks in the final third. That's how you score goals and unlock defences, especially on a Saturday afternoon when a team comes to Old Trafford and they might play a bit of a deeper line. You needed someone like that to really give you a bit of impetus. That'll be it for part one. We'll be back in a moment in part two. Welcome back to part two of the Manchester is Red podcast. Should we talk about Rashford a bit more? Then Ty, you briefly mentioned him there in part one and give him some flowers. You're completely right. He's looking so much sharper this season. And I think Rashford's the ultimate confidence player, isn't he? When things are going well, you can really tell in his body language and the way he plays. And when he's at his best for me, he just doesn't think about it. He gets the ball and he drives instantly. And when he's struggling, I think he overthinks the game a little bit. Might cut inside or struggle to go outside. He obviously started on the right wing on Saturday afternoon, which was interesting because I think we both agree his best position is off the left. But he had a really good afternoon, didn't he? And that cross, that's what he gives you. If he starts on the right, he's right-footed, and it was a fantastic cross into the box to Garnacho for the equaliser.
Yeah, it really was. I thought the pass in the first half that put Garnacho one-on-one with Van der Berg was even better, to be honest. That was from further to the touchline. It was drilled with the instep. It had a little bit of outswinging curve on it that kind of invited Garnacho onto the ball right to his feet. It was a fantastic pass. And I wrote a piece on Rashford for lunch today, and I was thinking about it, and in a way that you can tell when he's in form and confident because he plays well on the right, and you can tell. Then this is just my working theory, but you can tell when he's out of form and out of confidence because when he plays on the right and he's in that kind of zone where it's not happening for him, he doesn't perform. Maybe because he's overthinking it, maybe because he's thinking this isn't my best position, and it's not clicking, it's not working. Whereas at the moment, you think back to the first season under Ten Hag when he scored 30 goals, came on for England in the World Cup on the right a couple of times and really influenced games, scored a couple of goals against Wales there. Played on the right a couple of times again when he got back from the World Cup. I think it was maybe Charlton in the Carabao Cup. And he looked unstoppable even on the right. That there was a long spell that season where he was United's best left winger, best right winger, and best centre forward. Didn't matter which position he played, he was delivering the goods. And then last season he was poor on the left, but you put him on the right, it'd be even worse. Which is why Garnacho ended up playing that role. And I do think Garnacho is very capable of playing on the right, but it felt the way that Rashford played on the right on Saturday that it's almost because he's feeling good about himself again, he's feeling good about his game again, that being on the right isn't prompting those thoughts of this isn't my best position, I should be on the left, the manager's not getting the most out of me. It's just head down, deliver. And I thought it was interesting that when Ten Hag was asked about him after the match and his run of form, he mentioned attitude and he mentioned fighting spirit, and you do see it with Rashford. And we know that the attitude was a problem last year, the Belfast night out. Even the night out after his birthday, Ten Hag wasn't happy with some of the things that were happening off the pitch. But
there were more nights out than goals in certain moments, weren't there?
Yeah, there were. Yeah. And you're right. He's not just a confidence player, but he shows it so clearly as well, in a different way to Fernandes that we were just talking about. But with Rashford, you really see that body language when he's not feeling it and when his head drops. And I think that's why when he's out of form, you see fans get on his back because it's very easy for him just to see you do see those shoulders slump, that head drop. Suddenly he doesn't want to take players on a bit. He's kind of playing it safe, and his head's down. It all becomes a bit noticeable. But this year he's got all of that back, and like I say, it's the aggression for me that's showing, and it's aggression with the ball as well as without it. It's aggression in terms of this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it 100%. I'm going to totally commit to it. And classic example was the moment played on the right. They got the ball on the left from a corner. I think the corner that went over De Ligt's head and came out to him far on the left, and Van der Berg came out to confront him, and he just destroyed Van der Berg down the outside and put a dangerous ball in with his left foot that led to another corner. And you can really see it in his game at the moment. All round contribution. I thought he was probably the best of the front three at the weekend, even though they all played well. And I think it's very promising signs what's happening at the moment. You know, I put in that piece this morning. He had 13 goals and assists last year, and he's up to 7 already this season. And he does look like he needs to be in the team every week at the moment because he is flying.
Do you think Marcus Rashford is held to a higher standard than other players? Because one, obviously he's a local lad. He's come through the academy. He's the poster boy of the club. Pardon me. He should know what represent United means. And when he sulks on the pitch and things aren't going well, that's not particularly a good look. Do you think that comes into it, Ty, when there's an analysis of his performances? And two, sorry, I forgot to say this bit as well. I mean, we all know what he's capable of, and that comes into it as well. We all know what Marcus Rashford can do when he's at his best. So when you combine those two elements together, does that roll into why he's probably held to a higher standard, and people expect a lot of him?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's the case with every club, that weirdly academy players, when they're doing well, they get an plaudits. When things are going wrong, that they are the ones that are maybe held to a higher standard and get the criticism sometimes. And you're right, you know, the body language issue, the way you see those shoulders slump times, the way it sometimes looks like he's not trying. And I think, you know, that maybe comes with the intensity, that when he's not on it, that intensity, that aggression just isn't really there. And that looks like he's not trying. He clearly cares a lot about this club. But I think the fans see that, and it frustrates them and it disappoints them. And I think that's why he gets the criticism. But you know, it's a difficult thing to change. I don't know whether he's ever tried to change it. But if that's just your personality, it's a hard thing to do. And you know, the way to avoid it is to play the way he has done this season, with inform, with confidence, and suddenly the fans are well on his side again, and that's the way to change it. But I do think that's why he gets the criticism, because I think too often fans look at him and think he doesn't care and he's not trying, when I don't think that's necessarily the truth. I think that's just the way he is as a footballer, and the way he shows his disappointment. Sometimes he can't hide his disappointment. He can't conceal his disappointment to the changing room. If it's not happening for him, it's often very visible on the pitch, and that could be frustrating for fans. But if that's how you are, then it can be pretty difficult to change for him as well.
United never truly explored selling him in the summer, did they? There was obviously talk of that last season, and whether they should get rid of Marcus Rashford and cash in. I was of the opinion, I think it would have been quite sad for him to leave, considering the ability that he has, the talent that he has, and what he can do. You just think a player of the club's academy like that should be kept and should be performing at a high level. And Ty, although we're heaping the praise on Rashford and says he's obviously in the right direction again, and he's made a lot of progress, there's still clearly more to come from him this season, isn't it? He's still not at his top level. So hopefully that will come in the next weeks, in the next few months. Should we give a word to Lisandro Martinez as well? That was probably one of the most interesting things in the back four on the day. Obviously, De Ligt started again, but Martinez slided in at left back. What did you think of his performance? Because it's not his usual position, although he has played there early in the season, didn't he?
He did, yeah. He played there in the Community Shield. I think that's the only time he's done it for United. I think it's the only time he's played left back for United. I mean, he can clearly do it. I think he's done it fairly regularly in Argentina. When he was at club football in Argentina and a bit for Ajax. When you're a left-footed centre-back, there's always a good chance you're going to be used at left-back on occasions. I mean, you look at look at Guardiola at City and Calafiori at Arsenal, who are both left-sided centre-backs by trade, who are now playing left-backs for their clubs. We're seeing it a lot with those two teams playing four centre-backs really at times. So I think it's always a position he can play. And yeah, he played really well. He was solid. Johnny Evans was great again at centre-back. I was a bit unsure what Ten Hag would do. Obviously, Lindelof played at left-back 9 times last season. There'd been suggestion even Evans could play there because he is pretty comfortable on the ball. But I think with Martinez, he made the right call. It's good to have that balance. And, it does make a difference to the way you attack. And my only skepticism for whether Ten Hag would do it was that we know how much he likes having Martinez in that left-sided centre-back position for build-up play, really. And it's a trade-off when you're moving to left-back. But yeah, I thought he was very good. He can clearly do it. It's not, you're losing an aggressive centre-half, but as we've said throughout his United career, you're not losing a 6'3", 6'4" centre-half. His size is what it is, and it's fairly obvious. And he's made a mockery of those sort of early judgments after that Brentford game 2 years ago when they lost 4-0 that it never cut it. But he's clearly capable of playing at left back. And I mean, there's an argument you'd give him. Probably be easier if someone like Maguire was fit, but there's an argument that you'd give him a go there because it's a better option than playing Mazraoui or De Ligt there. I think at the moment having that balance and that left footer.
Don't know if you've noticed, Ty, but it's almost November. I'm not sure how that's happened. I mean, the US preseason tour was July into August. I mean, that's now a good few months ago. Do you think Ten Hag knows his strongest team at this point? He's had this squad for a good few months now. He's been working with them for quite a long time. He was heavily backed in the summer. Obviously, Luke Shaw is still yet to be seen this season. He's out with an injury. Whether we'll ever see him again, I'm not sure. Maybe he just retires at this stage. But when he comes back, you'd expect him to be in Ten Hag's strongest team. De Ligt and Martinez, I mean, Ten Hag has chopped and changed with his centre-half options, hasn't he? We saw that against Aston Villa as well. But obviously, Harry Maguire's out. I think the key point in that is probably the number 6 area because you're going to have Fernandes and Manu starting. We both agree that's their strongest attack that started on Saturday. That front three were excellent. But who actually starts in that number 6 role is the debate right now. And yet they spend a lot of money on Manuel Ugarte in the summer, and it was him coming on at the end for Casemiro, when seemingly Casemiro's United career was going down the pan after his disaster class against Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always a bad thing if Manchester doesn't know his strongest starting 11, but you're right, there are a few question marks there. I mean, if Shaw comes back, right back will be interesting. I don't know who out of Dalot and Mazraoui is Ten Hag's first choice necessarily. I think De Ligt and Martinez would want to be his first choice centre half, and like we say, the front three is pretty obvious. The midfield is an interesting one because Eriksen's playing brilliantly at the moment, but I don't know how he fits in long term. Do you continue with? There's been a few games where he's played Eriksen and Manu together, and they kind of dovetailed the number 6 role, which has worked okay. Ugarte one is really interesting. It does feel like there's not the trust isn't there at the moment, maybe to be playing him every week. He was in the team, he made a couple of starts and then back out. I thought it was really telling that against Porto and Villa, he didn't even get off the bench for either of those games when it did feel like Ten Hag was kind of in last chance saloon territory for those games. And certainly they lost both. I don't think it'd be in charge now. So to not use someone signed to play such a very specific position in either felt pretty telling. Probably not,
especially when Casemiro had such a drop off in some really bad performances. When you combine all those things together, it's a big surprise, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I think when Casemiro was hooked at halftime against Liverpool, and then the following week that Southampton game was all about, is Ugarte going to start or are they going to have to go with Casemiro again? And in the end, he didn't start either. Ugarte wasn't ready to start and he benched Casemiro. And at that point, you thought Casemiro's done for here. And then suddenly, like you say, he's back in the team, back playing that partnership with Eriksen. I mean, that was one of my biggest concerns going into the weekend, that you were having those two together again, because the recent record with them is not great. But, it did work. I thought Casemiro had a pretty good game on Saturday. So it is going to be interesting to see how that midfield develops because, I don't know what the best combination in there is at the moment. And I don't think Ten Hag does either. I would imagine that Ugarte isn't in it for now. Whether we reach a point where it's, I don't know, maybe Casemiro, Eriksen and Fernandes is, which is very 2022 and probably not a great indictment of your transfer business, given you signed, a £42 million midfielder, a £55 million midfielder in the last 2 years, and neither of those are getting in at the moment. But the midfield is definitely the area, I think, where we probably don't know what that best combination is. And I think we're all expecting Ugarte to come in and step up, but it's not really happened for him at the moment. And it can take some players time to settle in, but it doesn't feel like you're not watching those games at the moment thinking United desperately need him, because what we've seen of him at the moment is, it's not that high a level. I think there's got to be more to come from him from what we have seen.
They needed him to hit the ground running, didn't they? You got it, and he hasn't, unfortunately. It's a good point you make as well about Eriksen and Manu dovetailing and kind of sharing that responsibility at the base of the midfield, because I actually believe that's contributed to Manu picking up an injury, maybe, Ty. Look, it could be completely bad fortune that the fact Manu's now sustained a muscle injury. That is possible. But when you look at the defensive work that Manu's had to continue to do this season, it's been a lot. when you look at the statistics and the metrics, he's quite high out of all the players in that position of recovering balls, intercepting balls. So he's clearly doing the same role as he was last season in that regard. And the whole point in the summer was to sign a number 6 that would allow Mainoo to play more as a number 8, to allow him that license to go forward, because that is where he is best. I find it interesting when my friends ask me about Mainoo, or people who haven't watched him. I'm in a bar, for example, and they profile him as a number 6. He's not. He's a number 8. He's better in a more prominent midfield position. He's not going to be the guy sitting in front of the defence and breaking up play and doing what Casemiro has done so fantastically for 10 years of his career. United still need that player. That's what it looks like. But it was supposed to be that player.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure you needed, for example, when you said in a bar there, by the way, Stephen, I think we all know that's exactly where those conversations are taking place.
It's because I've got no friends. I just go into bars, seeing Tyrone, and just try to chat about United.
Yeah, buy a pint. Anyone want to chat about Kobe Mainoo? Anyone interested? But yeah, you're right. The idea, I guess, this summer was to free him up to go forward, and he's ended up playing further back at the moment. And I go back to, I think it was, I can't remember certain. It might have been the pre-Southampton press conference, but I'm pretty sure it was, in fact, where Ten Hag basically said Mainoo was the complete midfielder to me, as someone who can be a defensive midfielder and an attacking midfielder. And Kobe is that, and he can do both. And at the moment, I haven't seen enough at the moment to suggest he could be a holding midfielder, certainly on his own. I think he does get caught occasionally with players behind him, but he is 19, and I wouldn't expect him to be faultless in both positions in midfield. I think at the moment where he can influence a game is in a number 8 position. His ability to protect the ball is sensational. His press resistance is incredible. His ability to dribble past players and take players out of the game is brilliant. And all of that is better when you're getting the ball, I think, further up the pitch than getting it off centre halves, maybe. So I think his best strengths are in those more advanced positions, but does kind of play to that idea that, what they've got 112 million pound in holding midfielders over the last 2-3 summers. And we're not sure, A, which one's good enough to start at the moment, or B, if either are good enough to start. That'd be an interesting thing if everyone was fit. If Mainoo was fit, would Casemiro and Ugarte be on the bench? And it is going to be interesting over the next 2 months, I guess, when Mainoo comes back, to see how that midfield settles down and what the combination is going to be, because it's not obvious at the moment what would it be. If you were picking for your biggest team, you think of the derby in December, for example. If everyone's fully fit at the moment, I couldn't tell you what the midfield setup would be then, but you'd want to have a better idea by then of who the best combinations are and who the players in form are.
Me and Samuel recorded the podcast obviously ahead of the weekend, and we did it a little bit earlier than usual. So we recorded before Mainoo's injury was confirmed. It's interesting when you look at the fact that he travelled to Porto, obviously trained the day before that game, and he wasn't included in the squad. So you watch from the stands because he failed a late fitness test, obviously. And then 3 days later, he starts against Aston Villa, played around 85 minutes before being replaced and taken off. I mean, like I say, it could be bad fortune that he's picked up the injury, but the optics of not being included in a squad and then 3 days later starting a game, I'm not sure are particularly great. And I don't know if you saw that injury report that was sent out last week, Ty, and it looked at the kind of rising injuries in under 21 players, and it's jumped up in the last few seasons because these young players are being asked to do a lot more. So they've got to carefully handle Mainoo, don't they? I mean, he's such a talent. Same with Garnacho. These young players are being asked to do a lot these days. With the fixture list, it's incredible, isn't it? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. And, I said a few times on the podcast towards the end of last season, I thought Mainoo and Garnacho were playing way too much. I think I can't exactly remember the stats for Mainoo, but it feels like he started 24 out of 25 at one stage of the season or something like that. Garnacho, we know, started every game from November the 1st until the end of May. I think it was 38 games in a row in all competitions he started. Which is incredible and too much, really. I think before that, I don't think he'd started more than 3 or 4 in a row before that. So that's an astronomical workload to suddenly put on a player. And, Ten Hag has made the point about rotation a few times this season. I think he's right to do so, but it is just the case for a young footballer, especially one that gets in a first team at this level with this pressure at this stage of their career that they're going to pick up injuries. I mean, you look at Gavi and Pedri at Barcelona, who've both had really bad injuries, because they've played a hell of a lot of football as teenagers, and they're playing it at a club where the pressure is greater. There's no doubt about it that it's harder to be a teenager playing for Manchester United or Barcelona than it is to be a teenager playing for Southampton. With all due respect to Southampton, that's just the way it is. So,
Peachy won't be happy with you.
Peachy won't be happy. Yeah, hopefully he's not listening.
Told off.
I doubt he's listening to anything concerning Southampton at the moment. It has switched off at the first mention. So yeah, I think there is an inevitability with players of that age that they are going to pick up injuries, and that's why they do require careful handling. And you're right that, like we say, maybe these things are slightly coincidental, but it's not a great look the way that last week was handled with Mainu, and then suddenly he's out for a month. Yeah,
not at all. Fenerbahce next. We might do a preview podcast. I'm not quite sure later in the week, but we'll quickly touch upon the fixtures that are to come. It was so important that United got 3 points against Brentford, wasn't it? After those 2 weeks surrounding Ten Hag with all the uncertainty. And it's Jose Mourinho on Thursday night. Sofian Amrabat and Fred. That's going to be some game, isn't it?
It is. There's reunions everywhere you look, isn't there? I mean, even, I completely forgot today until I saw those Bayindir quotes. Bayindir's going back to Fenerbahce, which is Fenerbahce. I'm not sure what Fenerbahce came
you
from.
Go Italian there.
Not quite sure what happened there. Which is very much well down the list of narratives, really, isn't it? Given that it's clearly not going to play. But yeah, it's classic. It's interesting as well that peek behind the fourth wall that Ten Hag is now doing his media duties in Istanbul, and very late UK time Wednesday that he's going to do them in Istanbul. There was, a few of us were chuckling at the idea that Ten Hag would do his press conference at Carrington, which he's not supposed to do for a European game by UEFA rules. You are supposed to do it in the host country the day before the game. United have got away with it a couple of times in Istanbul, but I think UEFA are clamping down on that sort of thing. So it appears they are going to do it there. But you also have the possibility of, Ten Hag doing a press conference at Carrington when all of the press pack have already left, doing a press conference that's fairly low key as a result, not that well attended, while the rest of the Manchester press pack are talking to Jose Mourinho in Istanbul. And I'm sure Mourinho would love regaling them with a few little digs and barbs about his time at United and what he's seeing now. So maybe that's been avoided. And I'm sure, the questions around Mourinho probably prefer to talk to the Manchester press pack than the Istanbul press pack at the moment, because he's already under a lot of pressure in Turkey. They drew 2-2 at the weekend with a team I've never heard of before, and a fourth in what is normally a 3-horse race in the league. So not a great start.
Yeah, I mean, they finished 3 points behind Galatasaray last season. They were clear of third, 30 points clear of third. So they're having a really poor season. But when United travel to Turkey away, I mean, the red flags are flashing on, the alarm bells are ringing. Turkey is a difficult place to go when you're a club like United, because the fans will be up for it and they're fanatical across there.
Yeah, they really are. And, you think back to the Galatasaray game last year.
Welcome to hell.
The welcome to hell years and years ago, yeah. And the one in last season's Champions League group stage that I think was 3-3 in the end. Was it 3-3 or 4-3? Can't remember which ones were
3-3 away at Galatasaray last season.
3-3 away, wasn't it? Yeah. The other two were 4-3, weren't they? And that was hard. And the Fenerbahce fans are going to be well up for it. Mourinho's going to love making life difficult. And United are on this incredible run when, their last 4 European away games, they've scored 3 goals in all of them and won none of them. And that's going to have to change. And they do kind of need a result. I mean, I don't think there's any danger that they make a mess of this Europa League system, but they have taken 1 point from the first 2 games. And, I think if they lost at the week on Thursday night, I don't think any of us would be surprised if they lost that game. And that would just put a little bit of pressure on them. They've got enough, enough easy games to come, and what you think would be easy games to come to recover. But if they do get beat, they might already be thinking that top 8 is maybe out of the equation. And if they don't get top 8, if they're 9th to 24th, there's 2 extra games. So it does feel already like it's kind of a more important game than you would have expected at this stage of that league phase in the Europa League.
So Fenerbahce on Thursday, then West Ham away. They're struggling. They've had a really, really bad start to the season. And Leicester at home in the Carabao Cup. I mean, to round out October, they're very 3 reasonable fixtures. Obviously, Fenerbahce you'd expect would be the big test. And look, West Ham won't be pushovers, having said that, because they need a result. They are fighting for their lives. Lopetegui has been really disappointing. But United have got the wind in the sails now. They've returned with a win. they could go on a run here. They could win the next 3 games, and then you go into the game against Chelsea at home, and you're thinking, right, that this is the big test now to see where we are. But we've got confidence. We've got points on the board.
Yeah, it's not good go on a run. They should go on a run for me. Their run of fixtures coming up. I mean, Chelsea is the only difficult one, really. Fenerbahce's, they're clearly a better team than Fenerbahce because Fred and Sofian Amrabat are in that midfield. It'll be difficult because of the circumstances. West Ham away, like we say, West Ham are having a shocking season and a shocking start under Lopetegui, who is already under a lot of pressure. Then after that, six of the next 7 are at Old Trafford, and the game that's away is at Ipswich. They should really, really be making hay now, and there's no reason that they don't hit. When does that run end? December, I think, early end of November, start of December. Any talk Ten Hag getting the sack should be well down the list of things to talk about, because by then they should be back into top 8 in the Premier League at the very least. They should still be in every cup competition. Those 6 home games, I think Leicester twice, Chelsea, Bodo Glimt, PAOK, and Everton, I think. Chelsea is the only one that you even look there and think that's tricky. And Chelsea have lost to every good team they've faced this season, I think. So as much progress as Maresca has made, as much as they are playing some nice football, United battered them last season and should beat them at Old Trafford. So it is a run of fixtures, I think, where, if it reaches the November international break in the end of November and Ten Hag's future is still on the line, then something's gone badly wrong, because this run of games is so amenable for a United manager that there shouldn't be any slip-ups. I mean, you could excuse failure to win one of the 2 away games this week because of the tightness of the turnaround. Neither are easy away games. They're both tricky-ish for a reason. But after that, those next 7 games you look at, I mean, it should be 6 wins at the very least out of 7, including Ipswich away. So I think it really is now the time to make hay. And Ten Hag's not out of the woods yet. Even if he does win 6 of the next 7, I don't know if he'll be entirely out of the woods for the rest of the season. But it should now they've won this game against Brentford, it should be beyond comprehension, really, that we're having the same debate about his future in the November international break. And if we are, then something's gone disastrously wrong and he's probably toast.
I completely agree, but we will caveat all of that with expect the unexpected with United. You never know. You never know, do you? Thanks for your time, Ty.
No problem. Thank you, Stephen.
And thanks to listeners, as usual. Like I say, we might be back before Fenerbahce. Check out on your audio platforms if we are. Take care. Enjoy your week.